Hey, it's been a while. Let's swing back around for some of these beta changes for Lighter and Yanagi. So we're going to start with Lighter because it's pretty simple. Lighter had the duration of his buffs increased and he had his damage bonus buff doubled. He had a somewhat significant daze damage reduction, and his engine has been changed in a way where the numbers are currently placeholder and we don't know what it is anymore. So it's either going to be the same or it's going to be nerfed. It definitely won't be buffed. Lighter also had his M1 and M2 swapped, but yeah, TLDR, Lighter plays the exact same. There's a bit of confusion around like how his eruption stuff works. TLDR, it's because he spams his N5, he's just going to be building the stacks basically automatically, so you don't really need to worry about it. So it's a lot of flavor text for him just giving these buffs in a way that only he can give these buffs, except Shingi has a lot of the same gameplay mechanic where she just spams N for normal attack. Shingi gameplay. Anyway. Yeah, Lighter is a lot more competitive with Von Lycon now and Caesar. I think he should be competitive. I don't know the exact comparison because of the W engine changes, but besides the W engine changes, it's also just really hard to understand exactly how 3-second stun duration translates to. I talked about it in the first video. I don't think I hit the point home where it's this thing that could be basically worthless or it could be really nice. At minimum, it'll give you full team chains without losing time on your stun. So that's cool. Yeah, at minimum, we can go with that. But yeah, the exact comparison, I don't know because it depends on a lot of stuff. And his daze damage is very high. His daze surprisingly got nerfed. The before and after is, let's look at an EX-N5 comparison. So one EX-N5 used to be 4,459 daze damage, and it is now 4,357 daze damage. It's a slight reduction. Is that a significant difference in terms of how breakpoints work out? I don't think it is, but I think it's weird that they keep nerfing daze on stun characters. They keep doing it. This is like the third time it's happened. They increased his offensive buffs. Why did they nerf his daze? I feel like the stun might be losing its identity. It's weird. It's really weird. It's an odd choice. But yeah, his damage buff doubling is great. The duration of his Ice Red Shred and Fire Red Shred going up. Great. Good changes for Lighter. Good direction. I wish they'd swap back the M1, M2, but oh well. Oh well. Yeah, Lighter is in a good place now. The exact effectiveness of him is still kind of a bit of a black box until we get to play him, but he's a lot more competitive now. Like, comment, subscribe. We're going to try to do more Zenless content. More Genshin content is coming. Did you know most of you watching are not currently subscribed? You should subscribe. Let's also talk about Yanagi. So before we talk about what changed, let's talk about what I got wrong. So I was very focused on her additional ability and upkeep on it. So it used to be 6 seconds. It has been increased to 8 seconds. This is after she switches stances, her anomaly attribute app increased by 45%. This used to be 6 seconds. It's now 8 seconds. I was worried about keeping up on this, so I was pushing using her special when you probably didn't have to, just because I thought the upkeep on it was that important. It still is, but because they increased it to 8 seconds, it's a lot easier to keep up on it now. You originally didn't need to swap as much as I was describing, so it could have been like 2 or 3 combos and swap. Now it's definitely 2 or 3 combos and swap. The other thing that I didn't make clear is I just was referring to her combo as N3. Technically it is basic attack 345, basic attack 345, basic attack 345, because you are bypassing base attack N1 or basic attack 1 and 2 in her stance. So I should have made that more clear because there were a couple questions about it. Now, let's talk about the changes and what they mean. They reduced her disorder increase. You may think that this is a nerf. However, they added a new mechanic. During her EX state, when the finishing attack hits an enemy in an anomaly attribute state, it will trigger a special disorder called Polarity Disorder. Polarity Disorder does 25% of the disorder damage and an additional 17% of her anomaly proficiency as damage. And it does not clear the anomaly attribute on the target. This is a really fancy way of saying she can disorder without disorder. You can now play Yanagi in a full electric team. It isn't going to be as good as Burnice, because this also technically does buff Burnice as well, but it makes her a lot playable without Burnice or another anomaly character, which means you can open up team options for someone like Rena, who increases all that shock stuff and gives a bunch of pen. So at a glance, this is a little unimpactful, but I think it's very impactful for making her less dependent on having other characters built, and very impactful for having her be less dependent on having other S-rank characters. That's why I think this is a solid change. Even if those teams are still behind, it doesn't matter, because they're playable and you'll be able to do it and it'll be successful. That's why I like this change for Yanagi, and I think it's very positive. So awesome stuff. Yes, you can do polarity plus Neural Disorder. Awesome. Makes her a lot less dependent on other S-rank characters. Solid buff. Will Burnice's team still be good? Yes. The other thing that I need to talk about is actually something we've already talked about before. Let's talk about enemy weakness again. If you don't know, enemy weakness affects your damage, your day's build-up, and your anomaly app. So let's look at some of these enemies. So there's essentially all of the ether enemies have a reskin where they're weak to fire. When they are weak to fire, what do you think their resistance is? There might be some anti-synergy here. There's also a bunch of robots. I believe they're the reskins of the rebel soldiers, which have an electric weak variant. Yep, there it is. I don't know what they're cooking. I feel like they've forgotten how their game works. I don't know. With Lighter being fire and buffing ice, again, the same stuff is going to end up being a concern. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're thinking. The good news about this is Burnice applies enough anomaly for 20% anomaly res reduction to not be the most impactful thing in the world, but it's still odd that you might have to be dealing with it. There might be some actual anti-synergy here, and I kind of wanted to highlight it because it's weird. It's really weird that this seems to be the first disorder team that they're selling. I guess they'll do something else in the future. They might have alternatives for Yanagi, so maybe don't get that wound up about skipping Burnice for Yanagi, because it seems like there will be an alternative coming. It's also very likely that Harumasa is a support of some kind instead of another DPS. I don't know. Honestly, I think this game needs more DPSs. There are a lot of support 5 stars very early, and they're all really overlapping with each other. The fact that we have to talk about Ellen teams with 3 different S-rank stun options kind of speaks to there being an issue with this. Kind of speaks. Boom. But yeah, I like the Lighter change. I like the Yanagi change. Just some confusing direction stuff with, I guess, Burnice Yanagi that I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to clarify the mistakes that we made earlier with Yanagi, and just a quick update on Lighter. So yeah, that's what I got. Metaphor Refantasia, good game by the way. I think the music is lacking some sauce, but the game is very good.